Good morning, and thank you for being with us, as always, Mayor Wu. So, school started this week. I hate to jump down your throat, the first thing out of the box, but there's been a lot written. Marcela Garcia, one of our, she comes and joins us on BPR all the time. She's a columnist for the Boston Globe. She wrote a really tough column about the buses. I know it's been an ongoing problem. Some of the buses don't show up at all. They're 2 hours late. One of them is driving apparently between South Boston and Dorchester, then back to South Boston. So what is the problem? These bus drivers don't have GPS, or they haven't accounted for traffic, or why can't they get to school on time?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, welcome back to school for all of our families and students. It's, I think, the most exciting time of the year, certainly as a mom, to be able to pack the lunch.
That's right. Get rid of them.
But so much work goes into this moment across all the different school lunch departments and academics and logistics and facilities and transportation. And so there's a lot to celebrate. And I want to get into some of the nitty gritty on buses and transportation to kind of lift the veil a little bit so people can understand what's happening. But I also want to mention this school year, we are coming off of the record-shattering summer of more students enrolled in early learning, in summer learning than ever before, more paid youth summer jobs participation than ever before. So there's been a lot of energy, and I feel really good about where we are headed from students being prepared and having those opportunities. We have more AP classes now than ever. There's been an expansion, especially around pre-calculus and
which is great.
Research and African American studies. There's more early college opportunity. We have a couple new schools that have opened up. We're going to do the ribbon cutting on the Josiah Quincy school later this week. And so a lot of great news on that front. And thank you to our educators. On the busing side, so, every single day of a child's education matters, and every minute of that they're not in class getting that learning time, we take extremely seriously. The first day of school for everyone except for kindergartners on the Thursday, and then for kindergartners on the following Monday, it's always a challenge with so many more vehicles on the road, everyone getting used to those routines. And this year, there were particular additional wrinkles to this. First is that we are actually implementing a revolutionary new technology. So for the first time ever, families can actually track every bit of those routes through an app called Zoom, Z-U-M, which gives the reliability of drivers actually checking off which students have gotten on the bus and gotten off the bus, name by name, through a tablet that they have. It allows them to use real-time GPS on those tablets instead of the paper routing that was always the case before. And it just gives more transparency so that families can even, the night before or ahead of time, if you know there's a doctor's appointment in the morning, if you know your child is sick or something, you can actually say they won't be on the bus in the morning, and the driver will get that information and, again, be able to adjust in real time and make those routes better. All of that is going to take a little bit of transition. We now have more data than ever before. Previously, we were relying only on the bus's sort of hardwired GPS systems, which sometimes wouldn't function, and now we have the tablets, and so we always know where every bus is. But drivers are having to adjust to checking off each individual name and using the new app, which comes with all sorts of technology challenges. I would say, though, that hasn't necessarily been the biggest driver, no pun intended, behind the what families have experienced this start of school. For maybe a multiple reasons, we have seen a trend this start of school where a number of many families were registering in this sort of August, September time period. And so just as a comparison, last year there were about a third of our bus drivers, had route changes from when they did their dry runs and when their routes were assigned in early August to the start of school because new families had enrolled, or families said, I actually need to change my bus stop to something where, because I now live here, or this or that, the other. A third of drivers had to deal with those changes. This year, double that. 2/3 of drivers were adjusting to changes that had occurred between when the routes were set for their dry runs and the start of school. Some of this is that there are more and more newly arrived immigrant families registering, and sometimes those timelines are a little bit less predictable, and there's been an influx, but we have not seen these numbers in the August-September registration timeframe before, and so more learning for us to be able to manage how do we ensure that we can get the word out even earlier, really encourage families to get registered earlier in their summer because it does start to have impacts on planning. Again, this is mostly once someone is registered, they're incorporated into the routes, but we have had almost double the amount of change and sort of on-the-fly adjustment for these routes this year compared to last year's in any way that you measure
When
it.
do you get to the 95% that is committed in the school improvement plan on time?
I think we will see. Well, so first of all, the on-time rate between the first and the second day was a huge improvement. It basically doubled by the second day and went back to what the usual first week of on-time is. We hope that in a couple weeks, as this transition with the app and hopefully as registrations really settle down, we'll be able to measure the real trends behind this. This year, for whatever reason, with new registrations and new technology, we feel very good that this is all going to lead us to a better place with more data, more reliability, more engagement with families. But it is a learning curve with implementation of this new technology, and it will take a little bit for that to
Will you hit
settle
the
in.
95% this semester, this season?
Our goal is 100%. So we're going to keep pushing, and whatever we can do, major challenges are being addressed day by day, year after year. This is the first year in a very, very long time that BPS has had full staffing for bus drivers and for the bus monitors who are on the bus. So we're seeing real progress on a number of fronts.
The number, if you want to call or text the mayor, is 877-301-8970. One more topic.
Oh, sorry, can I add one thing on that?
Of course you
Jim
can.
and Marjorie, I forgot.
Yes.
So just a plea out to the families, and this is listed in the app. So when you download it, and we're at about 60% of bus riders, their families have downloaded the app, but we'd like everyone else to please do that because it gives you a lot of information. You can see good, bad, ugly, what is happening with the system as we continue to improve it. If you have feedback on how the app is working overall, if something just didn't quite match up or it wasn't working, if you can email schoolbus@bostonpublicschools.org, that's the best way to register sort of overall feedback with how it's working. If you have real-time questions or challenges as your child is on the bus or you need something much more rapid, please call the BPS Transportation Hotline at 617-635-9520. Again, both of those contacts are listed right in the app, too, if you download it and open it up.
So before we get to the calls and the text at 877-301-8970, as everybody, I think, listening knows, the state was able to rescue 6 of the 8 Steward hospitals. At the same time, a lot of us await, hopefully, criminal prosecution of the head of the operation, Ralph Delatorre. One of the places not saved is Carney in Boston. Boston congresspeople like Ayanna Pressley and Stephen Lynch said they called on Healy, quote, to the governor to move with the same level of urgency to keep Carney Hospital in Dorchester open as well. A lot of your fellow Democrats in the legislature said similar things. We had Governor Healy here the other day. She said she did all she could. There weren't that many beds filled. Anyway, are you satisfied that the Healy administration did all they could to keep the hospital open?
I don't think this is a conversation that is done by any means at this point. And
what does that mean?
So I continue to believe and act, and our teams are in conversation at the city and state level and with healthcare providers in the area about what the future of healthcare at the Carney Hospital site will be. It is not a closed door. I think for the immediate transition of the Steward properties, there were 2 pieces that needed to be in place. There needed to be an operator who could take over right away. And in many cases, I think almost all of them, there was some public support from the state, some financial backing that would make that takeover possible for those operators. In the case of Carney, and I know a little bit less about the other property, Neshoba, but as I understand it, there was both pieces were not able to come together because the scale of what public support might be needed and or the analyses that the different hospital potential operators had done of the site did not match up for that combination. Now, what that says is that there could be a new combination of services at that site that might, for example, provide for emergency room care, some of the imaging services like colonoscopy and mammography and outpatient care that patients relied on most. But because what's called the census count of the hospital, the number of patients actually using the inpatient beds was so low that it did not make it could not be financially sustainable for the operators to do this without a scale of state subsidy that it sounds was not affordable. Again, I was
So
not
is
part
any
of
of this
those
in the works?
conversations.
The thing you say that you hope could replace what was in that building.
Yes.
Is it in the works, and have you spoken to Governor Healy about any of this?
Yeah, I mean, Governor Healy and I talk all the time about this. Secretary Walsh and our executive director of the Boston Public Health Commission, Dr. Basola Ojikutu, local elected officials, providers. I've had multiple conversations with different hospital operators, and so there's a need, I think a widely recognized need for there to be healthcare at that site. It may look differently than how it had been previously, but we are not giving up on making sure that this does not become a healthcare desert.
Our number is 877-301-8970. That is the number to call or text. And we also have our colleague Zoe sitting there at the little desk in the front. If you got a question for her, you can come down and talk to her. I want to mention before we get to the first call that the kids from Torrent Montessori School are back again.
Here they are in the corner.
Where are they? Oh, they're over there in the corner.
You should say, Ace, they were here the other day for the governor.
Yep.
More of them are back, and they take notes,
That's right.
Mayor, on the performance
That's right.
of the elected
so you
official.
better watch out. Okay.
We're glad to have you guys.
Thank you very much for coming from Torrent Montessori School. Dan from Dorchester, thank you for calling. You're on with Mayor Wu.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Mayor Wu. I have a question about Dorchester. We have a lot of streets that are two-way streets that either have parking on both sides or even don't have parking on both sides, but are so small of a street that it's really hard to get two cars down there. And they're starting to become, every September when new people come in, there starts to become, not fights, but a little bit of road rage, a little bit of fighting going on. And I was wondering if there could be a way for the city to look at these streets and get them to be either one-ways or only parking on one side of the street.
Dan, if you can give your contact information to the producers here, we'd love to follow up to understand where exactly you're talking. I'm imagining some of the residential side streets that you might be referencing, but I would love to get more specifics. There is a process for proposing and vetting some of those changes. Obviously, when you move from two-way to one-way, it has all sorts of impacts on the entire zone or surrounding area in terms of traffic flow. So it ends up being conversations with all of the neighbors who live on those streets and a real examination of how that would spill over into the, whether it's Dot Ave or the major arterials, how people can still get where they need to go. But in terms of the immediate safety issue, we can also try to work with you. Sometimes better signage, sometimes doing things like adjusting for what happens right at the intersection of some of those streets can make it safer for people to see down the whole street. So let's talk more about the details.
Don't go away, Dan. We're going to get your contact information, if that's okay with you, and we'll pass it on to the mayor's colleagues.
We have a text question here. Why does the city not require trash to be in a container of some sort instead of in bags on the street? The rat problem is really bad. This texter says he has a photo taken on Sunday, West Springfield Street, of a seagull, eating a rat. Ugh. It doesn't seem the chemical being used to control the rats is enough. I didn't know they have to be in bags.
Beacon Hill, right?
They can be in plastic bags on the streets.
Are seagulls carnivores like that?
I don't know.
They are. I have seen them. I've seen them carrying horseshoe crabs and stuff like that. Little legs are flying in the breeze.
Could you do that again for the people watching on YouTube? Thank you.
Like a fly
Appreciate it.
that's back.
It's an excellent imitation.
I
Thank you. Mayor.
So so for the person who texted this, maybe you'll be one of the few, or not, I won't underestimate. You'll be one like me who has really enjoyed getting into the rat report that the city has put out. We engaged basically the nation's leading urban rodentologist to really study the conditions in Boston and work with communities. And the report lays out several different areas, exactly as they said, just having sort of control or some measures to try to control the population or address rats at the end of the problem once they're already there is not going to be effective. You have to get at eliminating food sources and having the proper mitigation for different locations. An urban street in a dense neighborhood versus a sewer versus a park versus other types of locations. There's different ways to try to mitigate. And so in terms of containerization of trash, this has been an ongoing conversation. I would say that there's widespread interest and hope that we could move in this direction as a city, because that would be the most effective way to address cleanliness, sanitation, and therefore the rat issues that come from it. We have always, as a city, tried to strike a balance where we're making things more as accessible and not putting a financial burden on residents as possible. Once you enter into fining people if they didn't put their trash out in the right way, or requiring more expensive bins, there's another financial component that needs to be figured out. So we are we're working on different pieces of this as the trash contract is going to come up for renewal over the next few years. But this is definitely a way that, and it is probably the only way to really effectively address some of this.
Speaking of the financial burden for people in the city, we've talked to you a lot about your idea to put more of the tax burden on commercial real estate, so that real estate private property homeowners in Boston and small business owners don't get a huge hike in their taxes. We talked about this with you, and you said that you wanted to make it known that if this doesn't happen, if this huge tax bill winds up on homeowners' tax bill, you would do what Tom Menino actually did when he was the mayor, and Tom Finneran was the House Speaker and was also a representative from Boston, when Tom Menino said, you're going to get a huge tax increase, residents of Boston, because legislature wouldn't act. Suddenly, Tom Finneran changed his mind and accommodated Mayor Tom Menino. You get a different reaction from House Speaker Spilka. There's been some
Senate President
Spilka, Karen Spilka, who and there's been some reporting that because you wouldn't support the Everett soccer stadium, she's going to stick it to you on the commercial property taxes. Have you talked to her about this?
I am very grateful for the many demands on the legislature's needs, and the fact that they're still working through a lot of the important items that were left sort of on the cutting room floor when session formally ended. They just moved, for example, liquor licenses for Boston,
yes,
so we'll be getting over 200 new licenses, and that happened after session close, and so we continue to be in conversation. I think there were two things I wanted just to slightly make sure that the facts are out there. In terms of this tax proposal, it is not about increasing a burden on the commercial sector. It is about maintaining the current stable balance between what residents and our businesses pay. If there were, and I don't want, again, I think I've gone down the rabbit hole too many times in too many ways about the details of this. I have a Substack post that explains everything. If anyone is curious, my Substack, substack.com/foodtrain, it has it on there. But basically, when property values move in the same direction for residents and commercial buildings, which is usually the case when the economy is doing well or when the economy starts to shrink, often they move in the same direction. This is a very unusual situation where they're moving in different directions. Residential property values continue to be very strong and increasing in Boston, while the commercial sector is facing this remote work challenge that is a transition and therefore going to cause values to go down. And when they move in different directions, that balance becomes upset. We want to maintain that same stable balance of what commercial and residential has always carried as the shared burden to fund police, teachers, fire, potholes, all of that. And so we're asking for the technical boundaries to be shifted so that we can maintain that balance. Not overall, commercial taxes will still go down under this proposal, but they just won't have a massive tax break, as would be the natural outcome given the rigidity of our tax laws if their valuations go down while residential goes up. And then the other thing, I do support adding vibrancy to the entire region and certainly to the city through sports franchises that are very exciting for our residents. I've always wanted a Rev Stadium in the city of Boston, or certainly nearby, would be great as well, so you don't have to hike all the way out to Foxborough. We're working on the professional women's soccer stadium that would also, and more importantly, house Boston Public Schools athletics. Those two would certainly complement each other. So I don't really buy into the media narrative or wherever this might be coming from that these two are linked and there's some sort of conspiracy background about this or that or the other. I think there are many issues that we all have to sort through, and it ends up coming down to the details on all of them. On this tax proposal, we have said we wanted to avoid having a time crunch and needing to have immediate, imminent pressure because bills need to be finalized by December. So any change would need to be implemented by then. But we will get more information, even in a couple weeks, about the exact nature of how much different sectors are going up or down, and then about a month or a month and a half from now, we'll have the parcel by parcel details about what the impacts would be with and without this.
Just to be clear, I think you said to us the legislature didn't do what you wanted. There'd be an average of double-digit increases for residential
33%.
properties. 33%. You've spoken to Spilka since this little back and forth.
Yes.
She given you any indication that this 5-month vacation, during the vacation, the legislature may actually consider this proposal of yours?
I think what she has said to me is that she's interested in good policy. And so I'm eager to continue making our case. And I know that as more information becomes available, just because the revaluation process through the assessor's department is so technical and so involved across all the different parcels, it does take time. I wish we had had that data before the end of formal session, but every single year it works out where you end up finalizing that in the late fall. And so as more information becomes available, I know she's certainly very interested in seeing that.
Can I ask you briefly the same question I've asked you 42 times? So this will be the 43rd. And you're probably the wrong person to ask, but since you're the one here, let me ask you, why should she be concerned at all, whether it's good policy or bad policy? You're the mayor of Boston. You were elected. The city council was elected. You want to do this. Why should people on Beacon Hill, particularly she's not even from Boston, or anybody else from Boston or not, have any say in what you do if it doesn't affect the other 350 cities and towns?
We're bound by the historical relics of the systems that we've inherited in Boston. There's a lot of good that can come from the sense of tradition and 400 years, and then there are sometimes I don't mean legislatively. I mean in terms of our commitment to democracy, our long-standing public goods in terms of parks and libraries, and our ethos that we want to make sure we're investing for everyone. But this sort of back and forth of cities having far less control here in Massachusetts and elsewhere does come from anti-Irish discrimination back in the day when the State House was seen as potentially being more fiscally responsible than the sort of Irish-controlled city of Boston.
Okay, I'll ask you next month again. Joey, I believe you're ready to come to the mic to ask the question to the mayor of the city of Boston. Hi, Joey. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So I just started at Suffolk last week.
Congratulations.
In Boston, thank you. And I'm really feeling the excitement today with the debate tonight. I know I'm personally really excited to see Kamala Harris take the stage, but I was wondering, Mayor Wu, if you could talk a little bit about, give everybody maybe a refresher with the excitement, people are paying more attention to the election today, where they can find their polling place, how to get registered, what resources or offices they can go to for voting information in Boston.
Great. And where are you coming? Where were you before starting?
I was in Western Massachusetts in a super small town called Russell.
Got it. Well, we're so happy you're here in Boston. Hope the year's going well so far, and I look forward to, I can tell we're going to see much more of each other as this election season progresses, and we want to get you involved in city stuff too. So you'll have to come intern with us and be involved. In Massachusetts, there are a couple things you should be aware of. One is that there's an option for early voting and mail-in voting. And so you have the opportunity to request a mail-in ballot, which sometimes can be more convenient for folks, that you could mail back in or drop off in one of the drop boxes in different locations. There will also be in-person early voting at certain spots, for example, at Boston City Hall. So all of that will become available. There is a registration deadline in Massachusetts. 20 days before the election is the voter registration deadline, so you want to keep an eye on that if you're not yet registered or you need to re-register. And you can do so either in person at any local city hall, or you can go online and register that way as well. So to find out where you vote, you go to wheredoivotema.com, and you can enter your address, and it'll lay out every single one of your elected officials, your polling place, and all the relevant information.
Joey, thanks. Welcome to Boston. We appreciate it. Mayor, before I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, before we take a break, you had to do debate preparation. How did you? There's a lot of talk of Donald Trump hasn't really been doing any, discussing maybe his policies here and there. Kamala Harris has been doing more intensive debate prep. What do you think? What worked for you?
I don't know that I ever got very good at that. We had, in the mayoral campaign, we had, I think it was 2 or 3 televised debates, and the dynamic of having to express sometimes really complicated ideas in just a quick clip while defending yourself and trying to bat back something that might not be accurate, it's very, very stressful and takes so much coordination. So I think the good news here is that a lot of people understand that this is a very big difference and a very stark contrast here. And sometimes in debates, people are looking for not only the policies and content of what someone's trying to express, but how they handle being in that environment, being challenged or thinking on your feet. And we couldn't have a better candidate who's able to just embody all of that. Former prosecutor, someone who knows the job inside out, having served as vice president, and who understands the policies through lived experience, through leadership in various public service roles. So I'm really excited for tonight, and I think we'll see even more of that contrast hammered home.
By the way, I hate to criticize. You're being unfair to Trump. I mean, the reason he's not doing the preparation is he's busy figuring out who he's going to send to jail after the election. By the way, Lori in Salisbury texts, seagulls take raw meat off the grill. If I turn my back, and I just looked it up, they are omnivores, meaning they eat everything. Okay. Mayor Wu,
they're
we got to take a
not
break.
fussy, that's for sure. Okay, we're going to be back with Mayor Michele Wu in just a minute. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. The mayor's going to be with us till the top of the hour, taking our questions and yours at the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We have another questioner at the BPL mic for the mayor. There she is.
Marilyn.
I think it's Marilyn.
Hello.
Hi, Marilyn. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Great.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Sure.
Today, Mayor, you very nicely expanded the senior property tax work-off program, and people came. But we need more opportunity in the seniors so we can all get through the program, and we must do it in the city of Boston. And our deadline to have it done by is the last day of October. So Age Strong has helped, but everyone in that area is new, which makes it a little harder for them because they're kind of trying to operate under fire, and they don't have the past history and who to go to and how to get it. And then we're also competing with all the interns that are coming back. So I'm looking for some assistance from you to tell them, hey, remember our seniors, and get us through the program that we've expanded, which was, it's wonderful. It's a good program.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Great. We would thank you, Ms. Marilyn. We would love to follow up, and if you could be sort of deputized as an ambassador once we figure out how to share all the information with you. We have expanded the constituent services staff at Age Strong, so because we know that there's such a need to access all the different programs that are available, and a lot of times people don't know about it or need help getting through it. So we definitely want to do that. I will also flag, actually, because this is connected to the tax issue that we were just talking about, the city actually had a proposal up at the State House as part of the transfer fee home rule petition that would have increased the ceiling for senior property tax exemption eligibility. It would have, I think, doubled or even more than doubled the number of seniors who would be eligible. We know this is a very strong need, and it was going to be tied to the resources that would come in through the transfer fee. So we've been trying to look for sources of revenue that are sustainable, that would have an immediate impact, and have been struggling a little bit on that front, but we'll keep at it, and we'll need to continue having conversations between the city and state on that one. And in the meantime, we'll work to make sure that the programs we do have are available, accessible, and we can get help spreading the word.
Good luck, Marilyn. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Philip in Chinatown, you're next on Boston Public Radio with the Mayor of Boston. Hi.
Hi. So thank you for having me on.
Sure.
So I had a question for Mayor Michele Wu. So this morning, the bus broke down for my child, and I actually had to drive her to school. And then when I came back and parked the car, I actually saw the bus replacement come in at 9:30. The bus was scheduled to arrive at 8 o'clock. We didn't receive any information about updates. Do you guys have any contingencies on that as well?
And Philip, we can either talk offline if you're not comfortable. Can you share a little bit what school was it that you were headed towards, and are you on the app already?
Yes, I'm on the Zoom app, and the Zoom app had no update.
Okay.
It just said that the signal was lost.
Okay.
And she goes to the Elliott.
Got it. Okay, great. Well, if you could give us stay afterwards, and then if you could give us the route number and your child's information, that will help us make sure that won't happen again, and we can. We're trying to chase down every little quirk of this technology platform. I'm so sorry to hear that stress and unpredictability, and we know that as we transition, hopefully this will provide the transparency that will give you the information and updates in the future.
Philip, stick around. We'll get your contact information. Mayor Wu, this should take about 30 seconds. Jeff tweets and says, City of Boston plaza lights are on all day for months. Waste energy, cost taxpayer money. I assume that's something you can deal with?
Yeah, City of Boston plaza lights. Well, I'm going to check with the team on this one. We just did a little huddle around a wrap-up of the summer, and there were more than 700 events that took place in different parks and City Hall Plaza and areas, and so it was very active and busy, and sometimes the lights are on because there's just activity programmed there, or we want to make sure it's a safe space. So I will check to see what the hours are and if they should be adjusted.
Where do you want to go, Marjorie?
Let's go to Eileen in Boston. Thank you for calling, Eileen.
Hello, Eileen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I want to know what is Mayor Wu going to do about the racially biased double standard in Boston Public Library employment practices. Black employees are disciplined more harshly than their white counterparts. Prime example is the unjust treatment of Roxbury Chief Librarian Alan Knight. He was placed on administrative leave July 5th for trivial action, and the library has been moving to try to remove him from his position. The system should be balanced. All employees, regardless of their race, should be treated the same.
We got it. Let's hear what the mayor has to
Great.
say. Eileen, thank you for the call.
Thank you. That is not only the library policy, but also the law that has to be followed. And so I don't know the details about this particular personnel situation, but can look into it more. And if helpful, we can also connect you or any others to some of our library HR team to share, to receive any more information that you might have.
Eileen, why don't you stick around? We'll take your contact information if you choose. So don't hang up. One of our producers will be with you in a minute. Mayor, briefly, you had a meeting, which I have a feeling was probably pretty affecting, with the mayor of Taipei. I assume most people know you're a Taiwanese American, and that was the first meeting, right?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was very. First it was just exciting to see another peer leader who's kind of a similar generation, a dad, someone trying to do his best to really emphasize building a family-friendly city as so key in this current moment. And then to know that, I was just thinking about how my parents, when they came to the US from Taiwan, nothing in their pockets, just trying to survive really, and hope that maybe their kids would have a little bit more opportunity here. They never would have imagined that one day their child could even speak to the mayor of the city that they grew up in, much less be able to welcome him in a peer role. So it was very special, and we had a lot of great conversations about the similarities between our focuses on innovation and the sort of industries of the future, alongside childcare, families, housing, climate, all things that even on different sides of the world, it felt very familiar, and I hope he felt at home because we certainly shared a lot in common, and I look forward to making sure we continue working together.
It's great. Where do you want to go?
You know, Mayor Wu, some people in the business community talk about how Mayor Menino and Marty Walsh before them, they kind of rolled out the red carpet for every developer in Boston and answered their phone calls immediately. And some people in the business community complain you're not answering their phone calls as quickly. But David D'Alessandro, kind of a legendary businessman in Boston, wrote a great column, I thought, in the Globe a while ago, saying that he thinks the problem is not your policies wanting to improve affordable housing or maybe not develop things as fast as some developers want, but that they're the businessmen have bruised egos. They're kind of like high school boys who were rejected by a prom date, that you don't treat them as entitled, and you don't want to go have steaks with them at Smith and Walensky, that very fancy restaurant downtown. So what do you think this is about? This, and it's not everybody, but it's some people. Is it about policy, or is it about you're hurting their egos?
Well, look, I am here to represent and fight for the residents of Boston and the well-being, the economic prosperity of the residents of Boston depend on our city having a thriving and growing economy. And so everyone has a part in that. Even if you don't live in the city of Boston, you work here, you own a company here, you are incredibly important to the success and the well-being and vibrancy of our community. I'll say, I've been in city government for over a decade now. Starting from my very first campaign, I printed out flyers to introduce myself to everyone. I left my cell phone number at the very bottom of the flyer. They were passed out, tens of thousands of them all across the city. I have not changed my cell phone number. It is widely available. It is still out there, and I have the same phone. So I am in pretty frequent communication with many folks in the business community, in the real estate industry. I don't know if some of the folks feel that they need my direct number. I'm happy to share it and do my best. But what I hear is that our team has a great relationship. There's many, many ways for the financial details that developers need us to know to be shared. There are ways to go through projects. I think there are a couple factors here. One is that it's a really tough time for development and for the real estate industry. We are at a 22-year interest rate high, and that has been sustained over a pretty painful amount of time now. And I've done my best. I've advocated to Janet Yellen. I continue to use every communication with the federal government where appropriate to say, this is really impacting our ability to get housing into construction. We have nearly 30,000 units now that are permitted by the city and waiting for the budgets to be able to shift in a way that they can build. And it's simply not something that on the public dime we can afford to fully fund private development and get that going now. We're trying our best to do everything we can, add predictability, speed up processes, streamline, change our organizational structure to be much clearer about what we expect. And there has been an adjustment of baselines. What is sometimes portrayed as onerous or inconvenient regulation from the city is in fact necessary life-saving baselines. We cannot compromise on climate regulation and moving towards fossil fuel-free construction as the foundation for people to be able to live in our city and survive. We can't compromise on affordability needing to be part of the conversation. And I think we're in this moment where there's a lot of stress. The last administration took place almost entirely during a near zero interest rate environment where the money was free and available to be able to build. Now it is very hard everywhere, and we're working as hard as we possibly can to make sure that they know that Boston is, of course, and always will be open for business, and that it is in the best interest of everyone, our residents, our business community, to be able to reach that steady state of everyone thriving and everyone growing together.
Do you want to give out your cell phone for those who've lost it?
Go look it up on the flyers.
Let's go to Wendy in Roslindale. You're on with Mayor Michele Wu. Welcome, Wendy. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Oh, no, there's an echo.
You're fine on our end. Give
I've
it a
been
go.
a long-term... Good. I've been a long-term community gardener in Jamaica Plain. For years, we would compost on site until we developed a rat problem, and then the owner of the property told us we could no longer do that. So our solution was to put yard waste bags out. Unfortunately, the city contract for yard waste does not pick up community gardens. So we were then told that we couldn't put out the yard waste across the street. So the upshot is that we cannot put out yard waste anymore. We cannot compost on site. So the solution has been to hire Black Earth Compost. We are paying $456 a month as a community garden to Black Earth Compost to pick up our compost.
Wendy, if I may,
So
you want to know what
is
the
there
city
a solution?
by the city.
What can the city do?
Great.
Can the city expand the yard waste program to
We got
community
it.
gardens, or can they help us in some fashion? Thank
Got
you.
it. Thank you. Mayor.
Thank you, Wendy. Yes, please leave your contact information. I'd love to figure this out and understand more. And yard waste is a constant ask that we get, both for the time period in which it's taken to be expanded, the window, because now more and more it actually goes later into the year. But this new wrinkle, this is the first time I'm hearing about community gardens being excluded, and that's an important point, and we'll think about it and get back to you.
Wendy, don't hang up. We're going to take your contact information. The mayor's office will be in touch. So, Mayor, I know I speak for Marjorie here. In miserable times, and often these are miserable times, art really matters. Entertainment really matters. I remembered when we were discussing this morning, I heard some woman play Mozart about a year ago who told us she was terrified, but she was actually pretty good. Here's a little bit of that. She was really, did you hear that, by the way? Did you happen to be there? Oh, that was you. That's right. The concert for our city at the BSO, it was fabulous. You did Mozart. You told us after you were terrified. You're doing it again, and you're doing Rhapsody in Blue?
I'm doing Rhapsody in Blue this year. Yes, September 21st. It's such a wonderful event that the BSO puts on, because it's really about a free concert that's meant to highlight and showcase talent in our community, involvement. So starting at noon on that day, there will be community performances outside and around, and then at 3 p.m. there'll be the indoor portion of the concert, where I will be even more terrified this year. But this is probably the song that really, really made me fall in love with piano, and I played it once a long, long time ago. So looking forward to dusting that back off. And there's would love a supportive audience, so people can sign up. Tickets will be available in a few days. Veronica Robles will also be performing. There will be some incredible community talent highlighted there. So thank you to the BSO for this and the many things they do.
By the way, after you played at that press conference, I asked Andres Nelsons if you were a better piano player than Keith Lockhart was, and he refused to answer, which I think is telling. Speaking of entertainment, can you spend a minute on Sunday programs?
Yes.
And the spooky, whatever the hell this thing
The
is?
block parties.
Yeah.
Very exciting. So again, in the goal and objective of being the most family-friendly city in the country, we have two bits of news. One is that the BPS Sundays program, which was the first ever collaborative effort to make sure our BPS students could access the world-class cultural institutions, that is continuing. It was originally slated just to go through the summer as we tested it out. So it's been so popular. More than 36,000 young people and their family members have participated, nearly half going to some of these institutions for the very first time: the aquarium, the zoo, Museum of Science, art museums, etc. And so that will run in its current form through the end of the year, just to make sure there's no gap in access for BPS students. And we are very close, kind of in the final stages of nailing down an agreement that would expand it to all children throughout, all school-age children throughout Boston. That program is planned to kick off in the beginning of 2025. So we need to finalize some of the details there, but it would be a similar access program, and we want to make sure that every young person in our city grows up having the chance to spark curiosity and wonder, and to have fun too. So the other part of this is that this will be I think it's the second or third year that we are offering small mini grants for Halloween block parties. And so we will help you close down the street if it's applicable. We will just want to make sure there's safe trick-or-treating events happening throughout the city. So you can go to the city website also. And so our spooky Halloween grants are available. Please sign up, and then you'll be on the list so that everyone knows where to go and they can enjoy time with their community and their neighbors.
That sounds great. Jane from Boston, you're on with Mayor Michele Wu. Go ahead.
Hi, Jane.
Oh, hi. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I've actually called before. I'm a business owner since 1986 in the Back Bay, and I am on the heels of what happened last night or yesterday, recently in the Commons. I'm very, very concerned about what's happening in the Back Bay. My office is on the corner of Clarendon and Boylston, and sometimes I wish that you all would hold your meeting outside of the library, just to see. I'm concerned about the number of buildings that are vacated. the amount of homelessness, the cyclists all around corners that are.
Oops.
I'm really concerned.
Hey, Jane, if I can interrupt you, your connection's not so hot, so why don't you jump to the question so we don't lose you?
I'd like Boston not to become another San Francisco.
Fair enough, Jane. Thank you for your call. Mayor Wu.
So thank you, Jane, for investing in our city's economy and being part of the Back Bay scene here. What I usually when people phrase it like that, I think the interpretation is you're worried about this perception that San Francisco is a place where crime or instability or lots of the challenges around housing and the opiate crisis might be visible, which can cause the business community and it's a little sort of spiral of impacts. I know Mayor Breed of San Francisco, and so I have a little bit of a sense of what they're working on, and sometimes the perception is there's a gap between perception and reality, but I hear from you loud and clear that we want Boston to maintain our position as the safest major city in America and to be able to continue having a sense that we're welcome for everyone and that every single street is a place where our economy is strong and people can get to where they need to go without concern. Safety has actually been, I think, the key plank in how we are thinking about the foundation for our economy. Without a guarantee that businesses can be in an environment and customers and residents can be in an environment where people feel safe coming out, that can end up causing all sorts of spirals. And so we, by the numbers, are clearly, not only compared to peers across the country, other cities, doing very, very well in terms of the declines and the level of documented public safety incidents. We've even seen very large declines year over year in Boston. And so we are at the lowest ever levels recorded of gun violence and shootings and major crimes in Boston right now, this year, even breaking the record that was set last year. So that is our priority to continue. Certainly challenges around housing and the opiate crisis require a very comprehensive approach, and we continue to be pushing out our mobile outreach teams, connecting people to resources, and making sure that we do better every day.
Mayor Wu, as always, we really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor
you
Michele
very much,
Wu.
and congratulations on those crime numbers.